I'm astrologer and life coach Penny Dix. Welcome to my YouTube channel and welcome to my in-depth look at this month's full moon in Aries. It's on the 9th, 10th of October, depending where you are living on the planet. And Aries is, of course, the first sign of the zodiac. So it's very much about initiating new things, even though a full moon is usually about closure and endings. But sometimes it's about what has to go to allow the new to come in. But let's look in more depth at the energies for this full moon. So Aries is fiery and cardinal. But there are softer energies in this chart which kind of tone down what can seem like quite a sort of too assertive full moon. You know, get rid of that, that goes. It doesn't have to be that kind of dramatic. Firstly, the moon in Aries is making a very gentle sextile to both fiery Mars in Gemini and restrictive Saturn, still retrograde in Aquarius. Now, a sextile is helpful. And what they're doing, this energy, so we've got Mars in Gemini, Saturn in Aquarius, the moon in Aries, they're forming like the top side of what you might say is a kite, kind of like that, like a rather elongated pyramid. And what's super exciting is they are actually part of a kite because they're sitting on top of what is a grand air trine. And so you've got, in this air trine, you've got Saturn in Aquarius, the Sun conjunct Venus, our planet of relationship, in Libra. Venus also rules Libra. And Mars, that of course rules the full moon in Aries, our assertive, sometimes aggressive planet Mars, in Gemini, which is about communication. How's this going to play out for us? Because it's really interesting, because it's you know, kites need the wind to fly. And I think the kind of the visual side of this full moon is that this kite formation is guiding us to rise above the problems that we've got personally and that we can see in the world at the moment. And I think it's asking us to have faith in these changing energies. And, you know, sometimes we have to soar up into the heavens like an eagle to see the bigger picture, to see this big picture that's being played out on the world stage. And sometimes that's on a personal level as well. You know, if you're caught in some kind of personal, just difficulty, I always think it's interesting to take a step backwards. It's like when you go up in an aeroplane and you have a problem, you have a difficult problem, but you're sitting on that aeroplane and you look down and everything is so small and sort of insignificant on the planet. And I think that can be really helpful to get things in perspective. It's like, gosh, that problem I have is in that town, and that town is only this big when I look down. So sometimes the eagle sight that we can have, if we consciously just elevate our thinking into it, can be really, really helpful. Now, Mars, our planet of assertion and energy in Gemini, and you know it's going to be in Gemini for some time. It goes retrograde at the end of October. And my October horoscopes are now up on my YouTube channel, and you can get all the lowdown on all the different energies that are going on throughout the month of October. But I will do a separate heads up on Mars going retrograde. But Mars is squaring. Now, that squares are challenging. and it's squaring Neptune. Now, Neptune in Pisces is about all that is mysterious and kind of nebulous, that we can't quite get hold of. We have a thought and it slips away. We try and remember something and it slips away. Or we deceive ourselves, or we don't see things clearly. And I think because it's Mars in Gemini, and Gemini is about communication, making this square, it suggests to me fighting talk that could be deceptive or misplaced. Now, Pluto, our big boy Pluto, that has just gone direct. See my heads up about that. It's trining Mercury, which is also direct. And it's still in shadow. Now, what this means, because Mercury is still in shadow, Pluto is about transformation, and it's making a nice aspect. It implies there will be groundbreaking discussions and that no stone will be left unturned. Now, that could be to do with anything that we have going on the planet at the moment. I don't even have to go there because you've seen the news. And this may also be playing out in your own lives in particular situations. And don't forget, we've still got the Saturn-Uranus square, and this suggests kind of like stalemate, fear. And I have a separate video on my YouTube channel explaining in depth about the energies of this Saturn-Uranus square and how it affects you all individually. So, do check that out. But we've also got this ongoing square from Pluto, which is about transformation, change, to Aries. Aries is this little dwarf planet. Aries is about fighting, and fighting for what's right, and about injustices. It can be fighting spilling out on the streets, like rioting, as Uranus can also represent in that kind of rebellious mode. And I think this brings more riots, more protests, the like of which we're already seeing in various hotspots around the world. I think we're going to see more of that. We've seen it in Russia, and we have no idea really what is unfolding in Russia. We've seen it in Iran, and I don't think that's going to finish anytime soon. And it wouldn't surprise me, with everything that's going on in the United Kingdom, with the current government that is making some extraordinary economic decisions which seem like economic suicide, that we won't see strikes and protests to some degree in the United Kingdom. But how's the planet going to fare? Because we need to know what this all means. So in the event chart, the moon is full in the sector that represents the world at large. The moon can also represent the community, the people. And as I've just mentioned, we've seen continued protests about injustices and fear about the potential outcomes. Aries, of course, where this moon is full, is ruled by Mars and is the sign of war and fighting, amongst other things, as one struggles to have one's ego accepted, because it's also about ego. It's the first sign of the zodiac. It's very much about me, I am, and not necessarily about who are you. So full moons, as I've said, are about endings and change. So I think what we have to look at with this full moon energy is what has to be lost or given up for the promise of peace, represented by Libra. We're in Libra season. This grand air trine brings hope that warring signs find balance. And as you know, I've said, I can leave you to fill in the blanks of the parts of the world this may be playing out in. And I think that with Venus in the sign it rules, Libra, conjunct the sun in Libra, so therefore they're in opposition to the full moon, we can see the possibility that I think within the UK and maybe just in general, the economy will start to balance itself a bit after what has seemed like catastrophic decisions made in the UK. And this recent turbulence, which is a result of this Saturn-Uranus square. And I do think that even though austerity will be necessary, there will also be a sense of relief that the energies will somehow have balanced out and calmed down with this full moon. So if you're watching this when I've just posted this, which is going to be round about the 3rd of October, we're probably still in the depth of it. Certainly today, the 29th of September, when I'm recording this, it's I don't want to see the news. It's too depressing in many ways. But thank goodness we have things like YouTube and we can talk about these things. But how are we going to fare personally? Because this is a full moon where we need to nurture ourselves and others. You know, these extraordinary energies we're all navigating will have made us aware that certain ways of personal behaviour, whether that's in our spending pattern economically or emotional commitment to certain areas of our life, have to change or end, so that our rebirth into a better version of ourselves for the times we're living in can be achieved. Sometimes we have to give something up. Sometimes we have to let someone go for peace of mind, for personal growth. And Aries is about positive and kind of assertive energies used for personal growth. So maybe you need to ask yourself some questions. What behaviors do you need to let go of? What no longer serves you? Which people in your life are not helpful for you emotionally or practically? Are they on your team? I always think it's a good thing every now and then just to check out, who can I really count? You know, it's like when they say you can count on one hand who your real friends are, who listen to you at 3 a.m. when you text them or call them. And I think it's about using this Aries full moon energy to make changes that can help you grow and find better emotional balance. We also have to ask ourselves, where do we need a touch of rebellion in our lives to establish some new rules for ourselves? Where do we need to toughen up on ourselves? Just kind of like think, I'm a little bit kind of lazy with that, or I'm a bit slapdash with that. But I think it's really important to trust that what leaves your life at this time really had no place to be there in the first place. Now, I'm going to give you some final thoughts before I move on to your individual zodiac signs. And remember to check out not just your sun sign, but also your rising sign, also known as the ascendant. So the destiny of the collective comes through letting go of the old ways of doing things. The destiny of the collective comes through letting go of the old ways of doing things. That's Pluto, transformational Pluto energy. The future is allowed to manifest, to come through by balancing amongst other things, family values, human values, respect for each other, respect for ourselves, respect for life. We have to sort of recognize everyone has the right to their own opinion about whatever is happening. But we don't have the right to kill for it or destroy others. Now let's come on to your individual zodiac signs. Aries. Well, you are getting a chance with this full moon to really reinvent yourself. You need to just get out there a bit and change the energies in general. I think you've got very bogged down with the sort of the small difficulties of life. They may seem big and they may be big in their way, but somehow you've got to get that eagle sight and just look at things from a different perspective. And if that means getting some different kind of help, talking to a trusted friend, talking to a counsellor, then that could be what you need to do. Because sometimes we get so stuck in a way of thinking. And you've got to think of that Mars, your ruling planet, in your third house Gemini of communication. That's really firing you up to say a lot of stuff that may in some ways be out of character, at least not thought through properly. So try and use that Saturn part of this grand air trine to slow you down a bit, at least for this month of October. Taurus. This full moon is really, really rather interesting for you because I think you are going to be waking up in some ways to how you can change the way that you come across and the way that you think. I think your psyche, your soul, has really had to be under the spotlight, your own personal spotlight, as you have realized that the ways you've been operating, the way you've been running your life, the way you've been operating within relationships, within the indulgences that you have really got to change. And in your career, because you've had sudden opportunities that have kind of thrown you into a bit of a spin. And you need to capitalize on all of that, because for you, this kite is telling you, do the inner work and my goodness, you can fly high. So, Gemini. Well, for you, Gemini, are you thinking of making big changes with a special project that you've been humming and hawing about, not being sure about? You know, you ought to do something before Mars goes retrograde at the end of October on the 30th, because use that energy whilst Mars is going direct in this part of your chart to look at what is most important to you. How do you need to feed yourself? And I don't mean literally by going down to the supermarket. I mean, how do you feed yourself spiritually? And in respect of this kite, I think it's about time you started with this full moon taking some risks. Risks with ideas that are very dear to your heart that you would like to launch. That's what I feel this is about for you, Gemini. Cancer. Well, certain avenues within your working life could be changing or coming to a close, but I don't think you'll mind. And if something goes, it will actually be a relief. And you will almost be the proverbial child running through the fields with your kite going, yippee, I don't have to do that anymore. So there's something of that kind of energy around. But it may just be that it is that you recognize that there are certain avenues that you've been pursuing with your career that just aren't giving you what you need. They're not feeding you in the right way. They're not nurturing you. And you know what, Cancer? You want to fly your kite, not everybody else's. Leo. What are you planning, Leo? Because either this is something about you making a decision that brings quite a lot of changes to do with your, with where you would like to see yourself in a few months' time. This is about, excuse me, distance. I'll just have a sip. Not whiskey. It's not even vodka or gin, it's water. Good old-fashioned H2O. Right, Leo, let's see. So Leo, this is about you actually recognizing that you've come a long way and you want to start going out there now and letting everyone know how you have done the work. You've done the exams, if you like. You've learnt the trainings that you've been putting you through. You have your certificates, you have your prize. And it's about you getting some recompense now for all the hard work that you've put in. And that kite flying high is going to take you to other parts of the world. And I don't think you can even begin to imagine what is going to unfold for you on that level. Virgo. So Virgo, this for you is very much about you checking out yet again that your budgeting is going to work for winter. And what do you need to perhaps realize into cash? You might be thinking of selling something to make some cash. I mean, we have got quite a difficult economic climate currently, and I don't think that's going to get any better anytime soon. And so I think, Virgo, you're really looking at ways that you can trim down your expenses and think very seriously about what has to go, what you have to let go of to make sure that you can actually bring into your life what you really want. And I think also there is something about this energy. This kite for you is about you seeing how much you've transformed. You are getting eagle sight onto your life. You are beginning to see how everything that you've been through up to this point in time has been preparing you for what is to come. And I think, Virgo, you're quite excited about that. Libra. So Libra, this is about your relationships. This is about certain ways of behaving in relationships that perhaps have to change or just stop, that you have to let go of. Sometimes this energy can mean that somebody leaves our lives, but it doesn't have to be that dramatic, especially if you don't want them to go. If you do, they could leave. But it's dramatic change. It can also mean, if you're single, that you're not going to be single much longer because somebody new is going to come in. So that's another kind of use of this energy, which is really quite exciting. And the kite for you is pulling in the energies of you. You need to have more faith, Libra. You need to have eagle sight on your own life and your relationships. And know and have faith that there are a handful of people that you really know are on Team Libra and have your back. And if there are one or two that have been paying you lip service, it's time for them to go. Scorpio. So Scorpio, I think with this full moon, your working life, your day-to-day routine is going to be going through some changes. I think you'll be quite happy about this. It's bringing in a little bit more structure to the way your life has been lately. I think it's been a bit all over the place. And this full moon is helping you just get back into a rhythm and a routine. And also you're choosing what stays and what goes in what you do. And you're also looking at how your health is. You may decide to go for a kind of an overall checkup, an MOT, a kind of, you know, sort of annual check to just make sure you're ticking over. And the kite for you. I think you want to fly away from a lot of the difficulties that you've been through over the last few months. And so I think sometimes you just have to allow that kite formation to pull you up to other realms where you can have that eagle sight and see your particular problems and situations in a more, in a different perspective, and perhaps in a more realistic way. Sagittarius. Sagittarius. I think you're deciding to make some changes with how you entertain yourself creatively. You may be deciding that a certain form of entertainment may be, you know, it's a bit like with all the economic downturns we've got at the moment, and maybe you're somebody that loves going to the theatre, that you're recognizing that you've got to cut back on that and kind of go back to once a month instead of twice a month. There's all these little cutbacks that all of us are going to have to make, I think, over the next few months. Also, a full moon in this part of your chart can mean a significant change in a relationship or a love interest. It may be somebody comes into your life and kind of fires up your energies and makes you feel that there is, that there is plenty of potential in what could come into your life, especially if you're single. So it's always quite exciting to have this kind of energy in this part of your chart. And so I think you need to use that kite to fly high and get it to take you out a bit more and enjoy a bit more socializing and meeting people. Get your fun and your kind of creative stimulation through pursuits that don't cost too much money. I think probably that's what all of us are going to have to do. Okay, let's move on to Capricorn. So for you, Capricorn, you're finally seeing the finishing touches to a project you have been working on to do with where you live. Either you've bought something, sold something, or you've rented a new place, or you're moving out of a rental accommodation, but there's a decision or a sort of a closure around something you've been really working towards. Now, I think this energy, because of this kind of kite formation, it'll leave some of the loose ends still hanging in the air, so it doesn't kind of all get done and dusted and kind of neatly put together and sort of put to bed, so to speak. But please don't worry, Capricorn. If there are delays, remember your ruling planet Saturn is about timing. And if there are delays, trust them. They are for a very good reason. So don't fear them, don't fight them. Just trust that they're there for a reason. And then you will really fly. Aquarius. Aquarius. So you're busy writing. You're busy creating kind of do you write a journal or something of that nature? But I just feel that you're going to be sort of having lots of ideas about what you want to put on paper, or at least put into a tablet or into your laptop, because there's a lot of energy around completing, writing and ideas. Now this maybe you write blogs. Maybe you're going to start writing blogs. Maybe you really have something to say about the state of the world, for example, and you feel that you need to get your point across. But I do feel there's some creativity in this full moon for you, and decisions being made about how you communicate, who you communicate with, and what form that communication kind of takes place in. Your kite is taking you on a lot of short distance journeys. You're going to be flying all over the place. I think you're going to have a very busy October. It's going to be right up until that November the 8th, full moon, total lunar eclipse that we have in Taurus, and that's on the 8th of November. You are going to be super busy leading up to that time. And what happens beyond then? Well, we'll have to wait and see. Pisces. Oop, nearly knocked everything flying. Pisces, my little oceans of emotions, my lovely fishes. Let me move that out the way before I send it crashing to the ground. Pisces, your finances, yes, they are going to start improving. Is this the news you've been waiting for? While the rest of us are so worried about the economic state of the planet and seeing the money just going out and not coming in, Pisces, for you, perhaps there is a certain form of payment that is coming to a close. So it will mean that you have more to play with. How cool is that, Pisces? This is super good news for you. And how are you going to fly your kite, Pisces? Because I think you have a lot of really cool ideas about what you want to do, what you want to launch. And you've recognized that there are certain commitments that you've had in your life that have to change or go. And that is what this full moon is about for you, Pisces. And to be honest, if that's the thoughts you're having, I think trust it, because October, as I've said, is going to be an extremely busy month for all of us. And I think you're going to want to free up time for a lot of other interesting opportunities that are going to come into your life, because Jupiter is going to be retrograding back into your sign at the end of October. This is going to be bringing you a lot of opportunities for personal growth and career growth. So you might need to clear the decks of what does not serve you. So, Pisces, thank you. Thank you, everybody, for joining me for this full moon in Aries in-depth report. And please remember to like, comment, and subscribe. And I look forward to seeing you next time. Bye for now.